Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the MEA Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, April 4th. Why don't we start with item 1 on the agenda, board announcements. Not seeing any this evening, we'll move to item 2, public open time on items not otherwise on the agenda. Okay. Item 3, report from our executive officer, Dawn.
Thank you very much. And I believe we have an oath of office to do with Robert McCaskill. We've not done that yet? Bob, have we done a oath of office with you yet?
No.
Okay,
All right,
then now's the time. Okay. Sorry you didn't get a warning. So, I'm sure you got
That's
the
okay, there's others
Stand
that
up
understand.
and repeat after me. I, Robert McCaskill,
I, Robert McCaskill,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States,
of the state of California,
of the state of California,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of California,
and the Constitution of the state of California,
and that I take this obligation freely,
and I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome, Bob.
And we'll get your
Very-
signature on this before you leave.
Yeah, very happy to have you join us. So welcome. Ready to move on, Dawn? Item, anything else?
Yeah, I do have 3 other quick items. The very first of which is, Beth, would you like to give an introduction to this addition to our team?
Yeah, happy to.
Okay.
So I am very happy to introduce Shalini Swaroop, who's over here on the side. She is our new regulatory counsel. Shalini is coming to us from the National Asian American Coalition, which is where she practiced before the commission, before coming to us. She represented the interests of communities of color and low-income constituents. She has her JD from Bolt, so over in Berkeley. Prior to working before the commission, she clerked at the High Court of American Samoa, and she is on the board of directors of the South Asian Bar Association, is a co-founder of the Bold Women of Color Alumni Network, and a volunteer for the Urgent Action Fund for Women's Human Rights. And I have worked with Shalini at the commission before, and so I'm incredibly happy and excited to have her as part of our regulatory team. This is a really fortunate addition for our agency. So welcome, Shalini.
Thank you.
My other place is crawling with lawyers.
It always was.
And I have 2 other quick items. I just wanted to let folks know that the Green Power Partnership Awards have all been submitted and approved by the EPA. We mentioned this at the last board meeting. And all cities and towns that are receiving MEA power are now added to the EPA Green Power Partnership website. And we kind of took over their list. So if you go take a look at their website, you'll see that many Marin cities are showing up near the top of that list, and it's really exciting. Road signs have been delivered to us for all of the cities and towns that qualify as Green Power Partners. And Simon Los is the member of our team who's been interfacing with your city managers to get those signs to you. In some cases, a preference has been expressed for just a kind of quick handoff delivery. In other cases, we are being asked to present these at a council meeting, which is actually our preference. We're very happy to come to a council meeting and make it a visible presentation. If you would like to have a presentation at your council meeting and that's not already happening, let me or one of us know, and we can make sure that happens. The idea is that these road signs which will then be posted at a conspicuous place in your city or town to let folks know that you're a member of the Green EPA Green Power Partnership. It's really exciting and good bragging rights. They recommend that you put it near one of the entrances to your city or town, or another idea is to put it near your city hall. And then the last announcement I wanted to make is that XCOM will be held at the normal time, April 17th this month at 9 a.m. And our technical committee will be held at a different time this month, where it's been moved to April 22nd at 9 a.m. And materials will be posted as usual on the website. Just a little preview of what will be discussed at both of those meetings. One thing that's really exciting is an exciting link that we're making between the Deep Green customer base and the local MEA developed project that we're in the midst of working on, and creating a local renewable energy fund. So if you want to learn more about that, come to our XCOM or TechCom meetings, and we'll get some way to make it. And that's it for my report.
Great, thanks. Dawn. Any questions for Dawn? Members of the public? Okay. Item 4 is a consent calendar. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review that in the packet. If there are no questions, we have a motion.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That matter carries. Item 5, resolution of the Board of Directors of MEA honoring MEA board member Dick Collins. And I believe I had the honor of reading the resolution last time. Unfortunately, Dick was not able to join us again this evening, but Don has been in touch with him and will transmit the resolution to him. And it sounds like down the road he will be joining us, and we can give him that.
Yeah, we look forward to having him come back and having cake in his honor and having him here in person.
Well, we're always up for that. Item 6, addition of board members to the technical.
I think we need a motion.
Yeah, so just a couple of quick points.
Oh, did we
One is
defer it from last time?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we need action on item 5 and also action on item 4.
We took
Well,
action on
yeah.
that. We did.
Just 5, just sorry.
But 5, thank you. Yeah, I thought perhaps we had moved it last meeting, but let's go ahead and do that now. So do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That matter carries. Item 6, addition of board members to the technical.
Great, so I'll just make a comment on this. We have some new members on our board, which is exciting, and some new members on our technical committee. And at this time, we'd like to make a change to the members on our technical committee. Director Connolly has offered to step off of that committee to make room for one of our new members to join that committee. And so we're excited about getting some new blood into that committee. It's a really exciting committee. We talk about a lot of technical, internal operations type items, and it should be a lot of fun. So fortunately, our new director, Whitby, has offered to join this committee and be part of the committee. So I think that's the change that's being proposed at this time.
What's the total lineup of that committee?
Yeah, so we have Director Sears, Director Green, Director Bragman, Director Small, and Director O'Donnell in that committee currently.
Great.
So that leaves a 5th seat with your departure.
Okay. And again, everyone, the committee work is essential. We really appreciate everyone stepping up to do the various committees. Let us know if you have any particular interest in committees. We have a couple others coming up as well. So thank you again. That sounds like a great lineup, and Director Sears is the chairperson.
There, Brian, ensuring it doesn't get too technical.
Keeping it high level. That's right.
Is it your opinion that it just got a higher quality?
Yes. Okay, item 7, so we need a action
Yeah,
on
we need
that,
a motion
on
on
item 6. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That matter carries. Item 7, creation of 2013 ad hoc contracts committee.
Great. So this item is one that comes up from time to time, typically after we do an RFP or an open season. And It's an opportunity to create an ad hoc committee that's temporary in nature and allows for some feedback and input from our board members on some of the contracting decisions that we'll be making as a result of the open season. And so a few board members have expressed interest in this committee. We've reached out to many of you, and we have more interested members than we ever have in the past, which is really exciting. And at this time, I'd like to read off the members of the board that have expressed an interest in participating in this committee. It's a committee that will be meeting somewhere between 1 and 3 times probably between now and the summer to look at the open season proposals that came in and possibly provide feedback as we go through the negotiation process and get to the final contracting stage with some of these bidders. So directors that have expressed interest at this point include Director Connolly, Director Koch, Director Green, Director Athas, Director O'Donnell, and Director McCaskill.
So that's the perfect number, right?
That is 6, yeah, we
Okay.
can't go over that.
I guess I can exclude it, it's okay.
Uh,
It's all right, you have enough folks, I'm happy with the lineup that you.
Yeah, we appreciated your interest and your willingness to allow new blood to join in that committee, so.
Okay, do I have a motion for?
I'll move.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We assume they want to be on the committee.
Yeah. Should always ask that up front as well. Hearing no opposition, that matter carries. Item 8, support for local renewable installations seed fund.
Sure. Good evening, Board of Directors and members of the public. I'm Emily Goodwin. I'm just going to be real brief in introducing this opportunity for our organization, the Sustainable Energy and Economic Development Fund. I had to actually refer back to my notes to get the acronym perfect for tonight. Many of you have seen part of this presentation at the technical and then executive committee meetings, which we've vetted and sort of presented this offering to the board. For some, it may be new, and so members of the public, bear with us as we kind of do a high-level review of the PowerPoint. I'm going to have our team go over tonight, and then specifically, we'll all outline our role, MEA's role in this sort of collaborative effort, which we're very excited about. If I can just introduce Kip and Jonathan and Rebecca, and if you guys can just introduce yourselves, your title and where you're from, and then I'll turn over the PowerPoint to you. That'd be great, thanks.
I'm Kip Scheuer. I'm a program director at Strategic Energy Innovations, a nonprofit based here in San Antonio.
I'm Jonathan Whalen, Senior Project Manager with Optini Incorporated. We're an independent solar project consultant. We operate out of the South Bay, but I am a San Rafael.
I'm Rebecca Woodbury, and I'm with the City of San Rafael, and we are the coordinating agency for the effort that you'll hear about.
There you go, now I'll turn it over to Kip.
Thank you. And thank you again for the opportunity to present to you all and to members of the public. So I'll be just giving a brief overview again. A number of you have seen this before, but we want to run through it one more time for your discussion. We're talking about the Sustainable Energy Economic Development Fund. What this is a revolving fund that's been set up to facilitate the analysis and decision-making for public sector agencies about clean energy projects, and in particular, in this case, solar projects. What we wanted to do is enable the public sector to more thoroughly vet in a fair, open, and transparent way the opportunity to pursue emerging clean energy technologies. We know that cities and schools and special districts, the staff are overwhelmed. They don't have the time to explore every emerging opportunity, but there are opportunities out there. The market's changing rapidly. And so we created this model to provide upfront assistance to facilitate that decision-making in a no-cost, no-risk way. And the goals for this effort are to bring together a group of public sector agencies, schools, special districts, and municipalities in a collaborative bulk purchase program where we hope to realize about 10 to 12% in project cost savings by moving such a large market segment. And also, more importantly for, I think, a lot of your staff's sake, is to reduce the transaction cost, because San Rafael is going to be stepping out front as the coordinating agency and serving to do a lot of the heavy lifting so that the other agencies can piggyback on the RFP without having to do as much upfront work. And we'll be providing San Rafael with a hopefully close to ready RFP process, so their load is not as high as it would be here. Seed Fund is set up as a nonprofit LLC. It's a subsidiary of Strategic Energy Innovations, which is important for a couple of reasons. When starting this program, one of the questions we actually got from a few members of your different organizations was, well, we're going to be paying you guys at some point. You're going to pay back this fund, this revolving fund. How do we know something's going to happen positive? How do we know you're going to keep doing this work with it? And so we said, well, that's a really good question. And so what we did is, we're already a nonprofit and mission driven, and that's a good thing. The money will stay in a nonprofit organization. But we created a dedicated LLC, so the money actually continues to cycle only for these collaborative procurement projects. We're working with Optiny, and I'll let Jonathan introduce his firm a little bit more if he'd like. But they're a leading solar technical consultant, and they've done a lot of work nationally and in China in this space. You want to say a few more?
I think you said it perfectly.
Okay.
I'll talk a little bit ahead, but you're right.
We've been working closely for a while, so, and they're actually one of the pioneers of this aggregated or collaborative procurement process in the region, and they've done some work in some other areas, so it's really great to work with them. This whole initiative was started with a California Solar Initiative Research, Design, and Development grant. This is a program by the CPUC designed to support principally technical innovation, but they do have a business innovation sector, and that's what we were funded to do, to test this business model, to see if we could set up a revolving fund, bring funds back into the program. At this point, I'll turn it over to Jonathan to give you some more background.
And again, thank you all for being here, and we're very excited about the opportunity to work both with the City of San Rafael and with the MEA here. As Kip mentioned, Optiny is an independent solar project consultant, so we do, we work specifically with solar projects. We're not tied to any vendors. We have a corporate mission to really develop solar projects here in the Bay Area specifically, but also throughout California, the Southwestern United States, nationally, and then also internationally. The idea of a collaborative solar procurement has really developed over the last 5 to 6 years here, and started with the Silicon Valley Regional Energy Procurement. That started off in about 2007 and was really progressed in 2009, 2010. That was 9 different agencies led by the County of Santa Clara, and then 6 cities, 2 special districts, getting together and realizing that they wanted to take advantage of the economies of scale of making bulk solar procurement, bulk solar purchases. They included 43 publicly owned sites. They were multiple site types, carports, rooftops, as well as ground mounts, and went out to bid with a combined total of about 14.5 megawatts of solar, which is a pretty significant solar project. Great success, and that's really what's led us here. We saw about 12 to 14% lower pricing for the bids that came back from that RFP than what was out in the market at the same time for the similar types of projects. Also reduced administrative and transactional costs for the participating agencies of 50 to 70%, so very significant. And then better negotiated contract terms and conditions. The vendors that responded were better vetted, had more competition. We saw about, I believe, 21 firms qualified to bid, and then 13 actually proposed. So great competition, and we were able to see some great pricing as well as better terms in the contracts that were finally signed. Just to step back a little bit, give a little bit of the background of where the solar industry is and why it makes sense to move forward with solar at this time. Just here you can see very briefly some major solar industry changes here very recently. Very dramatic drop in panel prices over the last 3 to 4 years. Panel prices have dropped by about 75%. So much better project economics, while subsidies are still here, but also as subsidies are slowly fading away. Consolidation in the industry, certainly there have been some pretty highly publicized failures in the solar industry, but really what that does is serves to leave fewer, stronger players in the market. So this has been seen as the solar shakeout, and it's been pretty widely expected and kind of a long time coming, so we're really happy to see that. New financial players in the market is a key. A lot of the banks, a lot of the bigger banks really are coming to a nice comfort level with solar, understanding that there can be a constant stream of revenue from financing solar projects, and they really understand that a lot better. They feel a lot more comfortable. So you're seeing a lot of the larger banks offer kind of standard products that really can appeal to both solar installers as well as solar purchasers. Insuring industry, a lot of, again, that's just a component of time here, but this is basically pointing out that the vendors that are still around have been around for quite a while. They know what they're doing. They're able to compete a lot better and offer basically a better product both on the roof as well as financially. U.S. markets are the new focus. I'll show you a graph here on the next slide, but really, the solar market's really been led by Europe for the last 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years. As Europe struggles a bit financially, we're seeing that the market globally for solar products is coming here to the United States, as well as to China and some of the emerging markets such as Southeast Asia and Africa. We're also seeing excess PV capacity coming online. There has been a glut of modules, and that's part of what's been driving pricing down. But really what that does is again, lead to better opportunities for development. There is a little bit of possibility of instability there as some players come and some go, but definitely a lot of opportunity there to take advantage of better financing. And then grid parity is accelerating. Again, we're working with the Department of Energy, trying to get to a point where solar can coexist with traditional energy sources and can be available at pricing that is essentially the same or potentially even better. And we're seeing that we're getting very close. And again, the Department of Energy sees that parity point being when solar is available at around $2 per watt, and we're very close to that. We're getting to the point where we're seeing below $3 per watt. It was about 3 times that 7 years ago when I got into the industry, so it's really been a dramatic change. Again, very quickly, the solar project trends here. You can see the dotted line is the U.S. market share. So it's been hovering right around 6% for the last 8 years or so, but we're really expecting that to grow here to the 10 to 15% in the next few years. Again, as the European market dries up a little bit. And then U.S. PV installations have just been on a steady curve upward. We were just below 2 gigawatts installed in 2011. 2012 numbers aren't completely in here, but we were expecting to get close to 3, and that's expected to continue to grow. A lot of this is driven by, of course, the competition, or the alternative, let's say, electricity pricing trends. Over the last, in this case, 13 years that we've modeled here, pricing has, traditional electricity pricing has just been kind of a constant increase here. There have been a few ups and downs, but really the general trend has been about a 4 to 7% increase depending on the rate schedule, and that's for PG&E prices. And so I believe I'll turn this back over to Kif here to talk a little bit more about how all of this background, how this environment of solar making sense has led to the creation of MCE.
Thanks, Jonah. So we've touched on a couple of these goals, the savings on the project cost and the transaction cost. But I want to talk about the top and the bottom line for just a second, which are, our goal here is to bring ideally 5 megawatts of new solar on public buildings online through this program, which ideally would be going into construction at the end of this year or next year. That would represent a significant increase in the Marin, Sonoma, Napa County region as far as publicly installed solar. I think I looked very recently on the CSI database of projects that have already been built or have applications for rebates, and I believe it would represent a 40% increase in local government solar. And in Marin County alone, if we hit some of the targets we're heading for, it would be I think 100 or 200% increase. Because there's not, frankly, a ton of solar installed on buildings. We're doing much better in the public, the residential and commercial sector, but on public buildings. And this whole model is premised on the idea of a revolving fund, and we haven't talked about that quite so much, but the idea is for those people, for those agencies who go forward, who actually build solar in this program, they're the only ones who have to pay us back, and we're going to cap our costs at between 1.5% and 2% of total costs of the installed system. And what that means is if we hit our targets of, say, 10%, and we deliver that for 1 to 2%, the agencies are still seeing a net 8% savings, which is far and away, we feel, a really great opportunity. And we've been able to sort of engage the larger network to explore that opportunity, and ideally we come away able to do that again. So just to give you a bit of the sense of the timeline of where we're at, we started the outreach in the second quarter of 2012. We've been doing a lot of engagement. I'll show you some of the numbers in the next slide. We've done high-level reviews of sites, and now we're moving into doing feasibility studies with the agencies who signed the agreement to work with our program. We hope to be implementing solar throughout, we're aiming for a summertime release of the RFP, and then we'd like to see the projects being built in the first quarter of 2014. To give you a sense of how that pipeline works, we've reached out to over 200 agencies in the 3 counties, all the schools, special districts, and municipalities. Of those, we've done 32 pre-screenings for agencies. That number may be a little bit higher now. We've identified, I think, actually over 23 megawatts of potential in the region. Of that, we've got 10 MOUs already signed, which represent about 4.5 megawatts of potential, and we're hoping that we get that up to 10 or higher. And then when we go to the solicitation, we'd really like to see about 7 megawatts going into the solicitation, because some folks are going to come back and not go into contract, and that's how we get to the 5 megawatts getting built at the end of the day. This is a slide of sort of where we're at with the agencies who are either signed the MOU or it's well in progress. And as I think I mentioned, that's about 4.5 megawatts, and we still have a number of agencies who are considering participation. And we're working as we define the timeline with the City of San Rafael to really finalize that group so that when we can start to work and to develop the solicitation and get that out on time. And would you like me to do this, or do you want to say something about your role as San Rafael?
I'll just say briefly that the city, this project is a key project for our sustainability program, and our sustainability subcommittee, which is chaired by Damon, made this a high priority project for us. So we're very excited about the potential to work with MEA. We've never built solar before, so we're excited about the expertise that they can bring to the table and make this a more successful project.
Thank you, Rebecca. And then Emily, would you like to?
Sure.
Take the last one?
Yeah, if I can also just commend the City of San Rafael too for stepping up to be the coordinating agency. It's basically like the lead agency, but that term was sort of shied away from. But it's a big effort for somebody to sort of be at the helm, and it couldn't happen without that. So really, that's a nice segue into MEA's role. So naturally, Rebecca teed it up well. Just as a sort of sounding board, obviously an industry expert, somebody who has sort of boots on the ground, feet on the street knowledge about the process. A lot of the processes involved in what they will have to sort of manage with their role in the seed fund. They thought of MEA, and they contacted Dawn and MEA to discuss possibly being available for a consultant as a fee-for-service sort of model as needed for the items that we've outlined here, the obvious business review of procurement documents, assistance with responses to bidders and requests for information, evaluation of some of the proposals, and some of the reporting compliance as needed. Of course, this isn't something we would be a sort of main point of reference for. It would be as needed consulting through the city. And really Optiny and SEI is sort of that lead project management role and expertise, trusted advisor to offer this information to the city. But we're there as sort of a backup, which makes perfect sense, I think, to us. And we're happy to do it for us and sort of aligns well with what we're trying to do as well on a larger picture. And I would say another benefit to us is that the opportunity for the co-branding value benefits there is enormous, just as we start to get this process underway, and then of course as the projects materialize and we see them up and running, and there's just an enormous opportunity, I think, of positive value there for us. And then of course this is an opportunity for us to extend our net further for non-MEA customers and possibly reopen discussions to bring more customers into our fold, including deep green customers. So that's a benefit as well. One of the ways that Dawn brought up would be a great way to extend the fee-for-service models that we're offering pro bono support to some extent for the North Bay. And I'm just going to say as a footnote, we'll talk about this later, this would extend to the city of Richmond if that sort of aligns with the existing program that is sort of a sister program to the seed fund that's happening in Contra Costa County. But I'll let Jonathan speak to that in just a second. So keep in mind, as I'm saying, the MEA will provide the sort of discounted rate that also applies to the city of Richmond. So in order to offer roughly 30 hours of pro bono consultant services, we thought we'd extend it so that they bill their hours discounted by a third, just so it extends over the longer term sort of beginning of the project and it doesn't sort of get eaten up right away. And then, as we mentioned, fee-for-service model, pretty simple to understand moving forward. And that's what the agreement there details, is to the cap of $7,000. That's what we'll be looking for your endorsement on this evening for that agreement, specifically with the city of San Rafael.
BPI is Building Performance Institute, and HERS is the Home Energy Rating System. BPI is the main sort of professional certification that's being utilized by the investor-owned utilities for their whole house upgrade program, the Energy Upgrade California program. And HERS, Home Energy Rating System, is both a way to get into the rebate program and to get a score for your house that shows you the relative efficiency of your home compared to others. So these are high-quality trained professionals who have certifications under their belt and can really help homeowners get both information about their home and on a path to improving the conditions. So it's great. We did send out an email to each of those contractors, just a heads up. You've been put in our contractor database now, and gave them a link so that they could actually go and update their profile if they wish to. So that was a good milestone that we wanted to make sure we checked off before we started publicizing the web portal, so that the contractors had a heads up if they were going to be part of that. And the one other quick thing I wanted to say is that we're actually working with Strategic Energy Innovations, who is no longer here, on another front. PEI has subcontracted with Strategic Energy Innovations to implement a schools program, which is a component of the web portal overall effort. They're modifying their school-based curriculum to reflect the web portal, and using the web portal is a really unique way to track savings that the school classrooms achieve while going through the curriculum, and to challenge other classmates and other school groups to see who can achieve the most energy savings over a short period of time. So we're really excited about that program. We're also looking to partner with Marin Municipal Water District on that to try and coordinate all of these different efforts happening in Marin schools. We have a pilot that we're planning to implement in spring, and are hoping to take the lessons of that to a much fuller launch in fall, where we're hoping to get about 7 schools. So just a heads up that that's coming down the pipeline. We're really excited about that program. So multifamily. Multifamily, we've had the advantage of our 2012 funding to really get moving on this program, so it's the furthest along of all of our programs. We had our first, it was a boiler replacement in a market rate property, and we're waiting for final inspections on that before we can issue the rebate check, but we're really excited. The other thing that I'm thrilled about is that this week marks our first direct install. We're working with Marin Housing Authority, who's doing an upgrade on over 500 tenant units in the Marin area. And we got in at just the perfect amount of time to provide some free light bulbs, shower heads, and faucet aerators to really help them save money. And also it gives us an opportunity to get some trained professionals in the field. We're working with the Marin City Community Development Corporation, who supplied the first 2 team members, and that's them you see actually on one of the sites in Marin Housing Authority. And it's been, I would think it's safe to say, a learning experience for all of us this first week. But now that we're really starting to get into stride and we finished our first week's worth of units, we really have more of a handle on what's happening. And it's been just a great opportunity for all of us to work together on that. So it's been really a wonderful project. On top of that, we've just now started getting a lot of applications, a lot of phone calls. The word of mouth is starting to travel. We haven't even started outreach on this program yet, and already we have a property owner phone call like once a week with audits scheduled after that. So I think it's quite possible that this is a program that we could hit our targets much before the end of the program cycle. So hopefully we find ourselves in that situation. About that outreach campaign, we do have an upcoming outreach effort that we're planning. We've targeted a number of multifamily properties in the area that we think would be a good match based on age, size of property, master metered. And we prepared both a postcard mailer, which is included in your board packet, as well as an introductory letter about the program. And we're going to send a bunch of these out, about 100 of them, to different multifamily property owners in Marin and the city of Richmond, and then follow up with some phone calls, and hopefully we can just take all of our program targets out of the way with that one initial campaign. I'm really optimistic. Our small commercial program is also moving forward. What you see here in the picture is an informational meeting that we had based on a request for qualifications that we sent out a while back. We're looking to expand the existing network of contractors that work with the Smart Lights program to have HVAC, boiler, and other sort of building envelope capacity brought on board. And we were thrilled to have almost 20 contractors from different areas in both Marin and the city of Richmond show up. There are already proposals and qualifications coming in the door at CESE, and the deadline isn't until April 19th. So we feel really strongly that we're going to have some excellent candidates come on board. We requested as a component of this RFQ that contractors express their willingness to work with Marin City Community Development Corporation and with Richmond Build to bring graduates on board to their staff, and have indicated that we're going to have a preferential job placement for those folks who do work with those training graduates. So we're hoping that that can be a way to really help foster the relationships between some of the great training organizations we have here and some of the program dollars that we're hoping to spend. We're finalizing our whole building incentives and aiming for a May launch with our whole building component of that program, not just the lighting and refrigeration side, but also building envelope, HVAC, boiler, some of these deeper savings. And hopefully that should coincide with our financing program launch as well, so we can really offer property owners a turnkey solution. One really exciting update that came as a result of our engagement with the whole building side of commercial. We're hoping to use Energy Pro software. It's one of the primary modeling software tools that's used in California to look at the baseline and improved conditions of a building. It's like an engineering tool. And it's the main tool that's used in the single-family Energy Upgrade California program as well. When we reached out and started looking to see if this was something we could use, we found that it comes embedded with information about PG&E, about their rates, their logos, their incentives, but there wasn't anything about Marin Clean Energy. So we were able to reach out to the folks who run and manage this software, and it was perfect timing. They're planning a launch that'll be released in a couple of weeks, and as a result of that, we're working with them to make sure that we get integrated into that software tool as well, so that now when someone who lives in Marin tries to get an energy upgrade and has their house modeled, it can be specific to the Marin Clean Energy rates that they're actually paying. So that's good news. And then one final note, we have our initial canvassing campaign for our small commercial program. We'll be launching in San Rafael in about mid-April. This will be focused on the lighting and refrigeration upgrades initially, but while we're still finalizing the details of our whole building program. So that should be April 19th or something like that. We'll start knocking door to door and offering to schedule energy evaluations. The financing program. I indicated that we're aiming for a May launch for our multifamily and small commercial program. I'm hopeful that we'll hit that target. We had a very productive mechanics discussion with the folks at River City Bank, about 3.5 hours. We locked ourselves in a room and discussed all the possible things that we think we'll encounter in the program so that we can develop an agreement language that will represent all those scenarios. In the meantime, we've had some really promising discussions about the OBR single-family program. There are multiple interested lenders, including at least one term sheet and one conversation that we are very hopeful will yield some promising terms. Based on those conversations, we're targeting a July launch, and I'm very hopeful that within a couple of weeks we'll have a finalized relationship with the lender for the single-family program. One really beneficial part about working with River City initially is that it's given us a lot of learning experience for how one of these programs would operate, for the kinds of challenges we can expect to encounter through the billing process, and the kinds of things that we're going to have to think about. And that's been really helpful for us in terms of understanding how to approach banks on the single-family side and knowing the time frame we're going to have to deal with and helping accomplish some work that we won't have to do a second time around when we do the single-family program. So we're excited about that too. I'm just really excited about everything. Regulatory update. So back in January 14th, one of the things that was put forward in the decision that was approved at the CPUC, giving us our $4 million funding for 2013-2014, is that we had to submit an updated set of information about our programs in January 14th, which documented any changes we made to our program implementation plans and the supporting documentation. Finally, this week we had our meeting with Energy Division where they provided feedback on that filing that we submitted in January. And based on that, we have a list of things that they would like to see added to the program implementation plan to clarify what we're planning on doing. A lot of it is related to financing too, now that we have some terms with lenders and understand a little bit more concretely how that program is going to look. So I have the list of updates that they've requested of us. I'm not concerned about any of them. They're due within 30 days. Some of them are a result of a PG&E comment letter that was filed to our advice filing. And we've just been waiting to hear from Energy Division that they wanted to see us address some of the concerns of PG&E rather than jumping and addressing them that PG&E gave them. I did thank PG&E for their very thorough review of our filing. So that is it for the energy efficiency program update, and I am available for any questions you may have.
Well, maybe I'll just kick it off, Becky. First of all, thank you for your detailed report. Very comprehensive. I like how you've laid it out. As we've talked about the last several meetings, I think it's going to be very important to provide these regular updates given the scope of this undertaking, its newness, the amount of money involved, frankly, the opportunities it prevents. What I particularly like in your report is you have identified challenges going forward and how we're addressing those. So kind of the good and here's kind of the reality and what we're doing about it type approach. So that's just kind of my overall comment. I think this meets, going forward, kind of what we had in mind as you make your presentations. But I don't know, does anyone else have any questions or comments for Becky at this point? Okay, I think this is a discussion item. Members of the public? Come on, you guys.
I actually will say one thing, just as a, I don't know if I should go up there. I don't think I need to, but I can stand up. I tried the web portal and it's amazing.
Hey.
Yeah, it's really great. So that's all.
Item 10, I think we're right back at you here with a proposed agreement with Richmond Bill to provide energy efficiency workforce development training.
And now you discovered the secret of why I'm so excited tonight. We've been working with the folks at Richmond Build for a little while to try and work out the details of a partnership to see ways that we can support their program. And we think it's really good timing to be sure that we solidify this before our rollout in Richmond. It's no secret to anyone what a strong organization Richmond Build is. So it's a partnership that we think is really mutually beneficial to all of us. Just a little bit about the Richmond Build organization in case you aren't familiar with them. Richmond Build is a nationally recognized training program. It's a program of the City of Richmond, Employment and Training Department, so this is actually a proposed contract with the City of Richmond. A few of the awards, I just selected a couple of the ones that I really liked. First off, the 2008 FBI Directors Community Leadership Award. I think this solidifies a really strong undercurrent of the philosophy of Richmond Build organization in the first place, which is that when you have a community with so much strife and violence and really a lack of economic opportunity, there's an understanding that fostering that economic opportunity, fostering the ability for jobs and growth can really help strengthen a community in the first place and combat some of the violence and strife that exists there. And that's a message that I think really resonates, and obviously the FBI also understood the role that providing that kind of training and job growth can have in a community like this. 2009 Barbara Boxer Conservation Champion Award, and then in 2010, Congressman George Miller and the Assistant Labor Secretary of the United States, Jane Oates, came to visit the Richmond Build facility. So just a handful of things. One of the things that I'm also proud to point out about Richmond Build is that they have a strong proven success record in accomplishing what they set out to do. 87% of the graduates in the Richmond Build organization are placed in jobs with $18 an hour or higher wage. 21% of those graduates are actually successful in finding work in the green collar sector, which is a really high success rate for a lot of the training programs that are attempting to deliver on that. Another really important statistic is 85% rate of job retention among the graduates of the program. So these aren't just folks who are finding jobs for a little while, these are folks who are finding it and placing and staying with the work. The proposed agreement that we have with Richmond Build would be a $45,000 contract. It would be a year in length from April 4th, 2013 to April 4th, 2014. Richmond Build would handle the recruitment of participants from the City of Richmond and San Pablo communities. They would handle general construction training and additional skills training, as well as energy efficiency training as an extra component of that. In addition to this basic training, they provide job placement services on behalf of us and on behalf of the candidates, and they provide a follow-up period which can help ensure that high success of job retention. A little bit more about the training that we're planning on doing under this contract. This contract would provide comprehensive training for 20 individuals, including numeracy and literacy training, 1 hour each morning. This is an important part of determining success in the workplace, is actually providing some update on skills that folks may not have received. In addition to that, there's 12 weeks of general construction training, and this is a nationally recognized pre-apprenticeship program as well. So this provides a path for folks to find union labor employment if that's something they want to pursue. In addition to the basic training, they have a 3-week specialized green building training module, which they add, and they've worked with us to customize to meet what we think will be some of the needs of our program. On to the follow-up opportunities that they have. They'll provide job placement both within their existing contractor network, which is pretty substantial. They have a lot of relationships with contractors in the area surrounding Richmond. On top of that, as I mentioned before, we're trying to find different ways that we can foster both the MCC-DC and Richmond-Build training programs by putting in place policies that will encourage contractors to take advantage of those graduates. In addition to that, there will be a follow-up 12-month post-training support where they check in with the graduates and make sure things are going well and can help provide additional skill development as needed, and then also job retention services as part of that as well. Before I completely open it up for questions, I did want to take a minute to have Nicholas Alexander come up and introduce himself, and if you have anything else you want to add, of course, feel free to do that.
So my name is Nicholas Alexander, and as Becky said, I'm facility manager at Richmond Build. Just want to thank the chair, Connolly, and thank the board for having us here and considering the contract tonight. Definitely want to thank Dawn and Becky for bringing us in early on in the process. That's unique, and it really helps things go positively. This is something that we've been talking about doing for a long time, actually a couple of years, is doing commercial energy efficiency as opposed to just residential energy efficiency. And so MEA is really out ahead on this. I think it's important to talk about this fact that this would be leveraged funding. We have a lot of funding from Department of Labor. We've had funding from Department of Energy, as well as the EPA to do our program. So the $45,000 that's under consideration would go a long way with the leverage funding. And also just want to highlight the multiplier effect that local hire has on the economy. If we're bringing in folks from Richmond, from San Rafael, from Marin, those dollars are going to go a lot further than if folks are coming from San Francisco or further out, Walnut Creek and so on. So we really are glad to be here, and thanks for your consideration. And I got my mailer today.
Great, so that was all that I had.
Director Sears.
I think this program sounds absolutely fantastic, and I'm really impressed with some of the metrics. I mean, the 85% rate for job retention is really incredible. So, you know, kudos on that. And I think having this follow-up period is really a very important part of the program. I did have a question on that, whether the follow-up period was 6 months or 12 months, because the report said 6, PowerPoint said 12, so maybe we can split the difference and go for 9, but what is it, Nicholas?
That's a good point. I know Richmond Build targets a 12-month follow-up period, but we prefer to see contracts in a 1-year cycle, essentially, for this program, so we can have an opportunity to revisit after a year and see. So I believe the intention in Richmond Build is always to provide that 12-month period, but for the purposes of our timing and our contract, there really will only be 6 months at which they'll be under contract to provide that, because the training will be the remainder of that time.
I see. Great.
Unless you have something to add or clarify on that.
Super. Thank you for that.
I have a question.
Yes, Director.
Can you just help me understand the basic concept here, starting at zero? MEA or MCE is going to spend $45,000 to train approximately 20 individuals, and so it's slightly over a couple $1,000s per student. And I certainly understand the idea of getting people trained to be able to do things, but why is and I understand that we need efficiency, energy efficiency people to be able to do this, but they're not directly working for MCE. It's just, is this like a give back to the community as part of our involvement with Richmond? I'm trying to understand why we're doing this.
To a certain extent, you could call it a give back to the community sort of perspective. It is our hope that we can directly have some of our dollars from our program implementation go towards providing jobs for these people. But because of the way our program is structured, we don't, in most cases, actually have contractors who are doing the work, doing the installation work. We have contractors who provide the audits, who explain the opportunity to the property owner, and can facilitate the selection of contractors if the property owner wants that. But really, that's a private market component. So what we're trying to do is, on the one hand, create policies that will support the use of training graduates, and on the other hand, make sure that those graduates are out there. Another thing that we get from working both with MCCDC and with Richmondville is their network of contractor relationships. So that ensures that one of our goals, which is the workforce development and local job growth opportunities, can really have that supportive infrastructure of those people who work with the training graduates, know the contractors, and can make those connections, sort of serves as a matchmaker for us.
Directors too.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on this. I don't see this program solely as a give back to the community. It obviously has that component to it. But we're facilitating the training of people who will then work on solar installation projects of the future. And if you take the installation of the solar panels at the San Rafael Airport, we had a trained group of people who then could work on that project that was a benefit to our agency. So this is a multifaceted benefit from this contract, as I see it.
Director Green.
I'll chime in a little bit along the same lines. I really like the two-pronged approach where as our big mission item is the reduction of contributing to greenhouse gases and reducing the input to climate change, which is obviously a very socially positive objective. It's also a really positive objective to incorporate in doing that in terms of energy efficiency, training the workforce and developing, providing job training and jobs in an economy that's largely unresponsive to a lot of people. So I think that that's a really good thing too. I have a question, which is, could you detail a little more specifically what you mean when you talk about job retention services? What is that?
So I'm going to look to Nicholas to fill in some of those details.
Sure.
So, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me here. So, to speak to job retention, that essentially is, once you're hired, how long do you stay on with the company? I think the nature of the construction industry is that it's project-based. So let's say you have a boiler that needs fixing or upgrading. You do that for a couple of weeks and then you're done. And then what next? And right. So what we try to do is make sure that graduates have continuous employment instead of working for a couple of weeks or months and then essentially sitting out for a few weeks, which happens to the best of companies and the best of tradespeople. So that's what we really try to do, is make sure we keep those connections going.
And so is the way that you do that is that you have pre-existing and ever-developing network that you continue to massage?
Absolutely, and develop business relationships. Also, I think an important part that Becky pointed out is a local hire, not requirement, but preference for contractors. And so, bringing us on early in the ballgame really helps them out too. I think one of the reasons to have a training program is, number one, above all, safety. Everybody remembers the PG&E accident. If you don't have trained people to do this kind of work with utilities, it can be dangerous. So you need to train people, and you want to have a quality workforce so that people are interested in having these services done. So that's what we aim to do.
Thanks.
Director Budd.
I think one thing that may have slipped between the cracks here is that the money that's funding this is 100% coming from the CPUC grant. This is not Marine Energy General Fund or something like that.
Good point.
That's an excellent point. It's called out in the staff report that this represents 15% of the overall education and training budget that was awarded to us by the CPUC.
This might be a question to Nicholas as well. If you could talk a little bit more about the interface with apprenticeship programs.
Absolutely. That's really one of the key things about our program that makes it successful, aside from the city of Richmond actually has a local hire ordinance as well. But aside from that, we have a direct relationship with the Carpenters Union, Local 152. And so when graduates complete our program, they can go directly to work at a union contractor, although we don't work exclusively with union contractors. We work with non-union as well. But they have that entryway, and we have developed that relationship over 5 years, really longer than that, but that's the length of the program. It's been in existence. So really have good relationships, not only with the union, but with the union companies themselves. So those folks call us up, and we send people out, and they go to work the next day, and it's a great relationship. We also have relationships with the laborers union. We're developing relationships with Teamsters and some other folks.
Is it IBEW?
Yes, the electrical workers, IBEW, as well. And we think that's really important in terms of having quality jobs as well. We talk about quality in the industry and in the workforce, and the unions have been able to provide that, and also living wages for our graduates, which we think is important too.
Any further questions or comments? Members of the public on this item? Okay, well, thank you very much. Very informative. So this item requires a approval of the agreement and for $45,000. Do I have a motion?
I'm so moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That matter carries.
Fantastic.
Thanks again, you guys. Item 11, additions and adjustments to regular hire staff positions.
Okay. Moving quickly through this agenda. This is great. So I'm going to make a few comments, and then Emily is going to chime in a little bit here. But this item is to talk about the transition for a couple of staff positions. We have several staff that joined our team recently in the extra hire capacity. We'll be transitioning them to, or proposing this evening is transitioning them to regular hire. And kind of the context within which we're doing this is the growth of MEA over the last 6 months, the preparation for our expansion into Richmond and a lot of the customer service needs that will be part of that effort. And then also some of our involvement in the regulatory arena, where we've become involved in some cases that are going to be taking up a substantial amount of resources over the coming year, and likely a bit further. So just making sure that we have adequate support on an ongoing basis for some of the functions of MEA going forward. So what you have before you is, there are really 2 categories that we're talking about this evening. For 4 of the positions listed here in attachments B through E, you'll see detailed job descriptions for extra hire positions, which we currently have in place, which we're proposing this evening to turn into regular hire positions. And then item F and G are revised job descriptions for 2 positions which we have currently on staff that we're recommending making adjustments to. So in the first category, where we're talking about the transition into regular hire, I'd like to just talk for a minute about how the extra hire position works. It's an opportunity for MEA to do hiring in a flexible, as-needed way, which has been really helpful for us in the last 6 months as we've been growing quickly and identifying what needs are going to become permanent needs, what needs really are more temporary needs. And we've had some time to establish what the ongoing needs are likely to be. So I'm happy to take any questions on this item. And Emily, if you'd like to add anything to it, feel free.
Just that I think I may have a perspective in that I was brought on just a couple of months ago, and one of the sayings that I really like which makes MEA unique to, say, perhaps PG&E, which is where I came just before MEA, is that we're lean, mean, and agile, and we like to walk before we run, so we don't take on new expenditures lightly at all. And as we've had several of the committee members look at us after presenting this item and say, so you really, really need these folks permanently within the organization, and the answer is yes. And I can definitely attest to that, being fairly new, seeing how everyone takes multiple projects on, everyone has all hands on deck when needed, and this just makes our ability to do our jobs a lot better, with a lot more quality and quality of life at work as well. And then just the organizational chart that we offered, we've populated it with the folks that were brought on as extra hire that are now in the position to be regular hire, so that those names of those various team members are on there with their respective department. So if you want to kind of see a visual layout of the new folks.
Well, in fact, maybe you can put name to job title.
Yeah, happy to do that. And I think also, Emily, you mentioned something that that was a good point. It's worth making sure everyone's aware of that. Well, first of all, two things. The job descriptions that you have in your packet tonight are include proposed salary ranges that have been developed based on research and analysis of similar positions in place throughout a variety of public and private agencies in the region, and reviewed by our human resources team. They've also been structured to provide basic documented information related to compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and related appropriate qualifications there, and then also the Fair Labor Standards Act. So you'll see some characteristics of the job descriptions that relate to compliance with those two regulations. And then the other thing I want to mention is that the proposed new and adjusted positions were discussed in the March meeting of the MEA Executive Committee, and feedback from that committee has been incorporated here, including the proposed salary ranges and looking at a range of public and private agencies. But as far as to answer your question, Dr. Connolly, related to putting a name with the position, kind of running in order of your attachments. So for Regulatory Counsel, this is actually the newest addition to our team, Shalini Swaroop, who was with us at the beginning of the meeting and may have stepped outside here, but she would be working on the regulatory team, participating in a lot of the regulatory filings and ongoing proceedings that we have going on at the CPUC. She has a lot of experience doing writing at the commission, which is great, and happens to have a law degree, which is also a great addition. And then the next item, the job description for Account Manager 1, this is Ben Choi, who joined us. He's a resident of Richmond, and he's been a great asset to the team already. He's working closely with Justin Kudo, who's our other account manager. Justin's been with us for just over a year now, and is continuing to lead the efforts in Marin County and doing outreach to Richmond, but Ben is really taking the lead on being the account manager in Richmond, and will be responding to a lot of the questions that we're going to start getting probably tomorrow, as the letters are just hitting mailboxes this week. It seems like they went out on Monday, 17,000 of them, by the way, so we're glad to have Ben around to help us with that. The next job description included in your packet is the Community Affairs Representative, and this position is currently being filled by Elena Valez. She's been with us for a little over a month now. She's doing community organizing, public affairs outreach. She is kind of boots on the ground, calling up schools, asking if she can speak to their parent clubs, come and talk to the groups that are meeting there, and is also reaching out to churches and community-based organizations, and doing a lot of really amazing outreach in the Spanish-speaking community predominantly. She's also going to be running a couple of meetings and presentations in Spanish only. We have a couple of Spanish-only presentations scheduled, and in our English presentations, she'll be there to provide translation services. So she's been a great asset to our outreach efforts in Richmond, and we're excited about being able to keep her in that role. The next position here is Project Aid. This is Ashley Alberti, who's been with us for quite a while. She started as an intern, about 18 months ago, and transitioned into a role with us where she's really helping primarily support the public affairs team, which includes all of our community outreach and marketing functions. She also provides support to our regulatory team from time to time, though, by submitting filings to the CPUC. And so she has a really broad and diverse skill set and is great at getting things done on time under high-stress conditions, which we are really good at having many of those conditions to practice those skills. And then moving on to the positions that are already regular hire, but we're doing adjustments. We have the Energy Efficiency Coordinator, Becky Minton, who you just heard from on the last two items. And the reason that we're proposing adjustment for this position is that when we originally spec'd out this position, we had not yet made a hire, and we were expecting someone that might come in at a slightly more junior level with not quite as much experience and not able to take on quite as much of a leadership role in so many areas. Obviously, we've been able to bring someone into that position that's taking on a very high level of responsibility and launching a lot of new programs. And that really lends itself to a different job description and a different compensation range if you look at the market and what's out there for that type of position. And the last position is our legal director, Beth Rasmussen. The last time we came to the board to talk about her position, she was not, she was more of she was focused on regulatory issues predominantly, and her role has really grown over the last 9 months to take on a lot more oversight over different parts of the agency. We've scaled back quite a bit on the outside counsel that we've been using, both on the municipal front as well as on the regulatory front, and even to a large degree on the transactional front. So we've been able to achieve a great cost savings with the cutback on the the use of outside counsel by relying on an internal legal director, and we'd like to make an adjustment there to the job description to reflect the current responsibilities that are part of that position. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Don, do you actually list the salary ranges?
Yes, they are in the staff report at the tail end of each position, and to make it simple for review, we've actually included a recommendation in the body of the staff report at the end of each position description, and the recommendation includes the proposed salary range. We thought it would be too confusing to have just one recommendation at the end.
It doesn't show how much it's increased.
Yeah, so I think what we're looking for, and I assume you can just tell this to us right now, is like what it was before versus what the range was before versus.
Yeah, that is included in the recommendation. Keep in mind that only the last two positions are a change. The other positions.
It's actually not on, at least not in the staff report I'm looking at. If you look in the staff report for regulatory counsel, the recommendations suggest, if I'm reading this right, the recommendations section suggests a salary range, but that's the new range.
Right, so
we can't tell what the increase, if it is an increase from the current range.
Right, but I think you might be forgetting the legal director.
No, I understand, but no, they're not. Well,
Yeah,
There's two sections. There's two sections. At the first section, it is included. Then in the more detailed one, it is not. So you have to go back to the beginning, like starting at page 90. Page 90 through page 93.
93 at page 93.
Well, in the recommendations, but, okay.
So let's all go to the Energy Efficiency Coordinator section of the staff
It
report.
sure would have been helpful.
If you go down to the recommendation, you'll see in the end of the first sentence, it says the compensation range for this position is being moved from the range of 60,000 to 71 to a new range of 72 to 85. Do you see that? It's in parentheses.
93 has.
Yeah, page 92 is what.
92 is where it is, yeah, it does have it, okay. So that's the only one that has an increase.
And then the legal director, which is the other one where we're considering an adjustment, you'll see the prior range was 110 to 125. The new proposed range is 128 to 147.
Okay.
What page is that on?
93.
There's 91 and 92. Yeah.
The legal is on 93.
93 and mine is the board of directors chart.
Yeah, 92.
Yeah.
So it's just the last two positions
Yeah,
in the staff
gotcha.
report
Okay.
that have a change.
Okay.
It might be helpful, as you've broken this out into the different, internal operations under legal, resource, each of those different categories, the actual increase of administrative costs. in salary. So you I mean, I understand that we're looking forward to, you know, a much larger budget with Richmond coming on, but what is that percentage of increase against your future sales or revenue coming in? And how does that work itself out?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So are you really going to be having increased administrative costs, or will these administrative costs be in line with what we have before the addition of Richmond?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. And I should have clarified before that because the 4 positions that we're looking at transitioning from extra hire to regular hire have already been a part of our budget. They actually are part of the proposed budget that was approved last month and went into effect just this week. So those positions are already accounted for, and there will not be an increase to the annual budget with those positions. There was a cushion built in for the staffing needs in anticipation that we need to do some additional hiring in the next year. So that
So all of these costs going out were in the budget?
Yes, absolutely. So there's no budget change being proposed as part of this.
Yes, Director.
I have a couple questions. Of course, I always like to talk about money, so I want to talk about the salaries. Because I was very curious, I understand that the executive committee has, you know, thoroughly vetted this whole process, but when I look at the responsibilities of some of the different positions and the relative compensation, I'm surprised. So if you can say anything more about that, that would be one thing. And then the other thing is, in terms of the salary ranges that you have, I'd like to hear more about, is the expectation that the bottom end of the range is for people just starting out, the top end of the range is for people who've been here for how long, and so on?
Yeah, exactly right. So I can say a little bit about where the compensation analysis was done and what other agencies we looked at. That's how we came up with these ranges. But then in answer to your second question, yeah, that's precisely the intent here, is that we have a range that allows for growth year after year for employees, folks that are coming in at a more junior level with limited experience, not much time in their career, or not much relevant experience, will start out at the low end of the range. Folks that are coming in with a more senior level of experience would come in at the higher end of the range. But the hope would be for anyone that's coming in, there's a little bit of headroom there for slight cost of living or performance-related adjustments on an annual basis when we do the annual evaluation process. And the exact amount that's set within the range is really a to be determined, based on internal staff evaluation. And so that's not something that needs to be decided tonight, but the range we like to set with board interaction and board oversight. Some of the entities that we looked at when we were doing comparisons, actually, Emily, I know you did some of this work. Do you want to talk about those agencies?
Sure. Yeah, we in response to some feedback from our committee meeting, as well as just trying to give a sort of fair and objective review of what's in the marketplace today. We looked at the CPUC, County of Marin, City of Richmond, City of San Francisco jobs, Contra Costa County, Alameda County, Sacramento, SMUD, and then as well PG&E, BioMarin, just because it's our neighbor, and Autodesk for some relevancy here in Marin for the private firms, and just sort of try to get a range based on the scope of the position and then the years of experience. So you can't get an exact match anywhere. It's fairly easy with the government agencies. Outside of like an account manager is totally different at a BioMarin versus at the County of Marin. They don't even have account manager, right? Not a customer service rep. So I spent quite a bit of time just trying to find the same sort of scope of services, duties, responsibilities, and then years of experience to start at the beginning range of the salary. And so did a comparison, which is actually good industry knowledge just for the organization anyways to have on hand, that's up to date as of 2013.
One other thing I'd like to add is because we have quite a few board members since last time we were talking about compensation. Because our agency is kind of a hybrid, we have a lot of public aspects to the agency. We're a local government organization. But we also function as a private company in a way. We're not tied to tax revenue, we're actually tied to customer revenue. And a decision was made a couple of years ago as we were beginning to bring on staff that we would structure ourselves without offering a pension to employees. And so that's one change that you'll see. Many of the entities that Emily just listed are municipal companies or public agencies. Many of those do offer a pension to employees. And she also mentioned a couple of private companies. I think there were 3 on that list that we looked at just for a point of comparison. But you often see compensation is more front-loaded in a private company, and then with a government agency, you often see some of that compensation shows up in the pension, which we're not offering as part of MEA, so concerns about that being a liability in the future.
So does that mean then that the salaries, when the comparisons were done, were for total compensation, including benefits, or just for pay?
I would say for the most part, total compensation with benefits. They aren't available in all cases with some of the public-facing resources that are out there. They're sort of fee-for-service internet resources that allow you have to purchase a subscription to get that sort of insight. But for the most part, you can find it. You just have to spend the time to do it. So most of them include the benefit costs.
Director, given your background, I mean, do you see any particular categories where you would say, hey, that seems kind of odd?
Well, I mean, the one that stood out to me was the regulatory council and the requested qualifications for that position, and the compensation I thought was low relative to a couple of the other positions which didn't require nearly the background or the education, or at least it wasn't listed as part of the qualifications. So I mean, that was the one that I noticed the most when I was looking at it relative to everything else. So I mean, that just seemed low. That just seems low compensation to me for what was being requested for a background and
including law degree.
Yeah, and it says a law degree and a master's degree. Kind of like, wow, okay, and you're only going to pay what, $64,000 to start or something? I'm like, yikes.
I think that's
They're not going to be able to pay their student loans back at that rate, that's for sure.
I mean, that's a fair point. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, one thing that we have been beginning to slowly make part of the way we handle personnel is setting up a couple of phases that employees work through, depending on their experience and the number of years with the company. And you'll notice that the account manager position is listed as an account manager 1 position. We're finding that the current account manager that we have in place is performing at more of an account manager 2 level position. And so we may want to consider doing that with regulatory counsel as well. We happen to bring someone on that's very early in her career, but as you said, has a lot of educational background. And it's very likely that someone in that position would have a need and should be able to advance into a level 2 type of regulatory counsel position. So maybe we could look at developing that a little more proactively. I think that the agency's been doing things on an as-needed basis rather than on a proactive basis. I think that's a great suggestion. Maybe we can take that back and give it some thought to plan that out a little better. Okay.
Well, in fact, in this case, it appears that you have hired a very qualified person at the advertised salary.
Yeah, although it's still very early in the career.
Correct.
Yes.
I was just going to say, when you look at the legal director, it is a higher salary with going up to $147,000, and I know an awful lot of kids who've graduated. I say kids now that I'm so old, but students that have graduated from law school who haven't been able to get a job because it's so hard and it's such a competitive field. So. I would think that anybody who gets a job at this point, straight out of the gate, should be happy with what they get. So I don't think it is, I think it's something that they could advance and better the money as they go along and get their experience. But I think it's appropriate.
For regulatory.
For regulatory.
Yeah, legal,
the
legal
director
counsel is more.
Exactly, yeah,
it's
exactly.
General counsel, I agree with that.
The bottom line is if you're offering too little money, you're not gonna get anybody to take the job.
We already know.
And so if we come back, or you don't, or the person you find to take the job isn't somebody you want to take the job, give them the effort to try to get it at this price range. If they can't, they come back and try more money. I mean, rather go cheap than go
We've got
expensive.
somebody already.
Yeah,
so
we've
it's
got
working.
somebody. They hired
So
somebody.
that theory is
Yeah.
reality. right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I thought that at least part of our focus would be to pay people a living wage so that they can live here. And, you know, I don't know about all the rest of you, but being in the financial business and working with a lot of different people, $64,000 a year is not a living in Marin. I mean, seriously. I don't know if you've ever added it up, but you can't do it.
It might be a Richmond restaurant.
There are a couple of data points that might be helpful here, and we could certainly make an adjustment. I think that would work just fine, but just in case it's useful, in the compensation analysis that we did, we saw positions similar to our regulatory counsel position, with the CPUC coming in at 73,320 as the average. Marin County was 82,500. City of Richmond was 68. Alameda County was 91. SMUD was 60. PG&E was 114,000.
SMUD is Sacramento?
Yes, 60. So those were the data points that were helpful to us in creating the range.
If I can just, I'm not your human resource director, but when you hire someone in, I mean, there is a range up to 82,000 on this one particular position. And oftentimes when you hire someone, sometimes it's a 6-month probationary period or a year, and that first increase may be a nice increase dependent upon their performance, and that's part of what you do as their boss, is looking at and giving them incentives. So maybe your hiring in might be a little bit lower rate, but you know, we've given you a range here, or you've asked for a range, and so I think you have the tools needed to retain the right people.
Great. And if y'all would like to see a slight increase in the top of that range, I think that would be perfectly fine as well, to provide some more headroom at that 6-month mark.
Seems like a good range to start out
I
with.
agree. I'm comfortable with the ranges for all these positions, actually.
Any further discussion or questions? Yeah, very helpful input. Members of the public on this item? Okay, well, entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Opposed? That matter carries.
Check, it doesn't work out.
No.
Yeah.
Item 12, communications update.
Excellent. Well, when you came in today, you may have noticed the lovely organic canvas bags at your seats. We are in the process of getting new promotional materials to reflect the revised MCE brand. So we've got those canvas bags. We have some at the front if anyone in the audience would like to take one with them. We've got new pens and pencils and stickers as well, reflecting the brand. And at our last board meeting, I also passed around the revised brochure. And what I didn't have copies of to share with you then were the brochures that were in Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese. And I thought you guys might be interested in taking a look at them. And so I'll pass them around. I have a stack of Spanish brochures here, and additional brochures in every language, electronically and in print. So if you have the need in your day-to-day discussions about MCE to provide information in any of these languages, please let us know. We'd be happy to share those with you. They also include the rate inserts that show the cost comparison between MCE and PG&E. And again, that's an insert so that we can update that as MCE or PG&E changes their rates. So we'll be bringing these types of promotional materials to all of the events and meetings that we're going to in Marin and Richmond. Included in your packet was an updated list of events, and actually since this was submitted in the board packet a week ago, we added 13 meetings. The majority of these meetings are in Richmond. Just under 70% of the meetings on this list are in Richmond. So our public affairs team is really busy on the ground in Richmond, spreading the news about the upcoming choice. One of the really exciting meetings that we have coming up that wasn't included on this list because the date wasn't finalized yet is a community town hall meeting, town hall style meeting that we'll be hosting in Richmond. That is actually going to be on Earth Day on April 22nd. We are going to have 3 community town hall style meetings. So the first is on Earth Day. We'll have 2 English meetings, and then we're going to have 1 meeting that is for Spanish speakers. And our community affairs representative that Dawn mentioned earlier, Elena Velez, will be there to be presenting the information in Spanish for us. So we're really excited about doing that additional outreach. So the reason we're doing this outreach, of course, is in preparation for the July enrollment in Richmond. In July, every Richmond customer who does not choose to opt out will be enrolled into MCE's light green 50% renewable energy option on their regularly scheduled meter read date. And so in addition to the community outreach that we're doing right now, we have just sent out our first opt-out notice. Earlier you saw someone in the audience who got their opt-out notice today, and Dawn mentioned that we mailed our first batch out to Richmond customers on Monday. So that's really exciting. We'll be mailing 3 out before the scheduled July enrollment. So 2 are going to be mailed in April, early April and mid-April, and 1 will be mailed in May. Customers who do not opt out will get 2 additional notices after their enrollment, so that'll be in July and August. And keeping in mind that we're required to send 4 opt-out notices by law, but we send that fifth opt-out notice for additional measure. So the first 2 notices that go out, the first notice that's already gone out is a letter-style envelope and a sealed envelope. They are attached to your board packet, 2 samples of that letter. And we did something different with the opt-out notice that we haven't done before. There's so much information that people need to consider when choosing whether or not they're going to stay with MCE. And in order to avoid bombarding people with information that might not be applicable to them, we identified 6 different core customer groups who needed specific information in order to make a well-informed decision. And so I listed those groups in your staff report. They're residential customers, commercial customers, net energy metering customers, so meaning you have solar on your roof for either residential or commercial, customers who are participating in a discount program like California Alternative Rates for Energy, also known as CARE. Family Electric Rate Assistance is another one. And then the other program is called Balanced Payment Plan, and that's a program that PG&E offers where you pay a flat rate on your PG&E bill every month, and every few months PG&E updates that, so your monthly payment isn't variable. So what we did was we identified all of the customers in Richmond who fell into each of those categories so that they would receive a notice with that specific information. And when we did that, we ended up identifying 16 different combinations of those core customer groups. So we ended up creating 16 different unique letters. I only attached 2 to your staff report, or to the staff report, so as not to bombard you. And those were the residential and commercial opt-out notices. And you'll notice that they're in English and Spanish. So those were the first notices that went out. We're really excited about that. I think we're going to start getting really busy. Today we saw an increase in our call volumes. It's the first day since we mailed them on Monday. It ended up being about 4 times the amount of normal calls that come in. So people in Richmond are definitely opening their notices and reading them and wanting to know more. So we're really excited about that. The other thing that we're doing in Richmond is the advertising campaign, which is really fun and exciting. The ad campaign started on April 1, and it's going to be running through the month of July. We have ads running in 2 print periodicals in Richmond, the Richmond Post and the Richmond Pulse. The Richmond Pulse is written in Spanish and English. And then we have digital ads running on the Richmond Confidential website, Redeemed World website, and then we're working with a group, it's called Ad Taxi Networks, and they're able to identify internet users in Richmond. So anyone who's in Richmond using a computer can be targeted by this ad campaign. And they work with more than 4 million different websites. So Yahoo or the Chronicle website, for example, on our ad would be targeted to that webpage at that moment, so that the Richmond customer would see it. So I attached our first 2 ads to the staff report. We're going to have 6 ads total, and there's actually several variations of each ad for the different papers. We have mobile ads, so some of the ads are very small. We have banner ads on the tops of websites. We have long, what they call skyscraper style ads, half-page ads in print papers, and quarter-page ads, and so on. So this is just an example of the first 2 that are out in Richmond right now. We are utilizing Richmond residents and businesses in this ad campaign. So there's going to be 6 different, we'll call them models, 6 different models in our ads. And the first 2 that we have here are Catahoula Coffee Co., and that's a Richmond coffee company. It's very popular. I believe they were, can you tell me what they were voted, Alex?
They've won the San Francisco Chronicle's Best of the Bay Coffee 3 years in a row.
So they're a very popular coffee company in Richmond, and they chose to go deep green, which is really exciting. Catahoula Coffee featured in this ad. The second ad that you'll see is featuring Damian King, and he's actually the publisher of Redeemed World magazine. So those are just examples of what the ads will look like. We have 2 photo shoots scheduled tomorrow. Actually, one with Richmond Build, which is really exciting. Can't wait to have them in an ad. And then our very own account manager, who is a resident of Richmond, Ben Choi, will also be featured in tomorrow's ad. And so at the next board meeting, I'll let you guys know who the remaining 2 are.
I noticed we don't actually use the word Marin in this.
Yeah, that's a great point. We don't use the word Marin anywhere other than Marin Energy Authority anymore. That was part of our rebranding to shift to inclusivity, to include Marin and Richmond. So if you look at our website or our new logo and our brochure, you'll notice that everything is focused to MCE. So, when we talk about our service area, we talk about Marin and Richmond, and when we talk about this agency, we of course still reference Marin Energy Authority, but the focus is no longer only in Marin.
Is our name actually MCE? It's not actually.
It's a program.
The program is called MCE.
That's the
MCE.
initials, that's the initials of the program.
It's an acronym. MCE is an acronym for Marin Clean Energy.
I know, but the company's name is Marin Clean Energy.
We're still the Marin Energy Authority.
I mean, it's okay, I don't, it's fine.
Oh yeah, officially, the company name is Marin Energy Authority. Our program
Well,
is
the
Marin Clean
organization is
Energy.
Marin Energy Authority. Marin Clean Energy is the program?
Yep.
Right, but we have the ability to shift that to MCE.
A rose smells just as sweet by any other name.
And we literally beat this subject to death.
We've been talked
meetings
about this.
ago. It's on tape.
And I even thought you were at those meetings.
So that's really all of my updates, and we'll continue to keep you all apprised of what's happening in Richmond, what kind of feedback we're getting, how things are going with our call center over the next couple of weeks. And we'll be looking forward to learning more and sharing more with the Richmond community.
And I'd just like to offer a huge kudos to our communications team. They've been doing an amazing job. I think the list of events is so impressive. I think these 2 ads are awesome. It's going to be a really great campaign. And the outreach that's happening in Richmond is it's been amazing. It's been a really big team effort. So good job.
And I just want to echo that. I think the ads are great, and I just think sort of the word of tonight is being so excited, and I'm so excited that we have these brochures in different languages. It's just fantastic. I think this is really sort of it's a tremendous step forward for this agency, that we've become so sophisticated in our marketing materials. So really great job.
Thank you.
The entire team.
Any further discussion of this item? On this one?
MCE, huh?
Yeah, a topic other than MCE.
Oriented to time and place, Ken.
That's fine with me, guys.
That's
fine.
Okay, thanks, Jamie, for that update. And again, great job, team in Richmond. Item 13 is regulatory update.
Everybody's favorite. So I'm going to go over two topics tonight. The first one I'm going to talk about is the cost allocation mechanism and how that's impacting our procurement. The reason why this is relevant is there was a decision that came down at the commission in the long-term procurement plan proceeding that expanded the scope of this procurement tool where essentially PG&E would procure capacity on behalf of MEA and our customers. And so it gets a little bit complicated, and so I figured I would just do the big scale overview for our new board members, and then if you have questions, this is sort of a recurring theme that comes up, and so feel free to ask me questions. And then the second topic that I'm going to talk about is you have in front of you PG&E Advice Letter 4210E, and they were required to file this advice letter, which indicates, well, it's unclear exactly what it indicates based on the advice letter. It was supposed to indicate whether or not they definitively plan to market against CCAs or not. You know, they plan to not market against CCAs.
Isn't she using the wrong stationery up there?
Well, but I file under Marine Energy Authority in the regulatory realm, although I guess I should probably start using MCE.
No, we've got to be consistent, though.
I know. I get that from Jamie a lot. So just so that's the overview. I'll give you a quick overview of CAMP, and we'll go from there. Actually, I'm going to stand over here. I'm going to be Becky for a moment here.
Talk fast.
So first I'm just going to touch on sort of our MEA procurement requirements generally that are imposed on us by the Public Utilities Commission. I'm going to discuss capacity procurement, which is what the cost allocation mechanism, or CAM, really relates to. We're going to talk about CAM, and we're going to talk about next steps related to the proceeding that I just mentioned about this expansion of CAM. So the Public Utilities Commission set some basic requirements for us. They include electricity, green attributes, and capacity. So electricity is just, I had Ashley O'Berry, who works in our office, pull together the slides. I'm not this clever. So,
Is it going to happen again?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So she did an excellent job, but I don't know how to do these things. So there's the electricity component, which is just the electrons that our customers need to turn on and off the lights. We have green attributes. I know, it's really something. We have green attributes. These can be, for example, greenhouse gas attributes, or they can be the renewables requirements, RPS. And then the last one is capacity. And so capacity is really just the value of the resources on the grid to ensure that there's enough resources online to serve all the customers if there's a spike in energy. So we procure enough capacity to serve all of our customers at any given time, plus a 15% reserve margin. I'm sorry if this is very basic for all of you board members who've been with us for a long time. So this is a power plant. This is a geothermal plant, although it looks actually kind of like
Something going to fly over the top?
I knew it! I know.
This is great. I love this.
This is the best regulatory presentation clearly all of you have ever seen.
I might actually listen to these things now.
Yeah, so anyway, so this geothermal plant is producing electricity. It's also producing green attributes. Since it's a geothermal plant, it's a renewable resource, and so sort of along with the electrons, you're producing some renewable value. And then the last thing it's producing is, just by sort of its existence on the grid, its capacity gets recognized by the California Independent System Operator. And each of those has value to us. And this is from our integrated resource plan. So if you have questions about that, you can ask John. But this is just saying that we procure RA with this reserve margin, and right now we have commitments for all of our RA through 2014 and through part of 2015. So that is how we procure resource adequacy generally, but CAM is a different beast. So CAM is the cost allocation mechanism. And what happens under this one is PG&E, well, the commission tells PG&E to procure a resource capacity on our behalf. And we receive a pro rata share of the capacity benefit, and our customers pay a pro rata share of the capacity costs. And so, we're not a party to these contracts. This is something that's imposed on us. So the problem here is, we're not in control of the resources that we're buying from customers. Those choices are being made for us by the commission and by PG&E. And so this is the simplified version where you just have electricity and capacity. So natural gas plant, you don't have the renewable attributes. And get ready for this. Woo! Whoa! Thank you. So what you have is these products that are coming out of this facility get broken into two parts. You have the electricity component, and that's being sold just to PG&E's bundled customers. So folks who are receiving generation service from PG&E pay for the electricity. But then the capacity is being paid for by our customers, by PG&E's bundled customers, by direct access customers. And so there are requirements for this to be a special type of resource adequacy that gets this cost treatment. It has to meet a system or local area reliability need, and the costs have to be allocated in a manner that's fair and equitable, whether they receive generation service from PG&E or whether they receive it from us. So, as I noted before, there was a commission decision that expanded the use of CAM, or appeared to, and so right now we're facing this procurement dilemma. So there are several issues that relate to CAM, and you've been on this board, you've seen this Venn diagram more than you'd want to admit. But there are some legislative mandates in place that say, okay, first we have to look for, the commission has to ensure that there's going to be a fair playing field for CCA. We need to have CCA autonomy, and we need to prevent cross-subsidization. And really this is all being touched by this CAM issue. So one of the issues is these costs are being imposed on our customers, but we have no opportunity to review it. So MEA is a market participant, so we are not privy to the prices of those contracts. And then we are not allowed to choose different or lower cost resources. We aren't in control of the timing of the resources. So the commission will approve CAM treatment for a resource, and then we have to incorporate that resource into our mix. And so if we're fully resourced on RA, that means we have to sell out or balance out the RA that we have already procured. So it can result in an over-purchasing of capacity, because you need to ensure that you're meeting your capacity needs, but then you don't know when these CAM contracts are going to come online. So originally this was a limited tool being used by the CPUC to really address some really exigent circumstances where a resource really needed to be built quickly to ensure there was enough resource on the system to serve everybody. And this sort of gets back to many summers ago where there were rolling brownouts and there just wasn't enough power on the grid. There wasn't enough capacity on the grid to serve everybody. But now it's more of a policy tool that the commission has been using. But there's good news, which is we had filed an application for rehearing on the bad decision that we weren't a fan of. And we raised a lot of issues, and that was in your last board packet. And it really raised the issues about, are these costs being fair? When should CAM be imposed on CCAs? And so in this next component of the same proceeding, they're going to look at how various legislation, including SB 790, the CCA legislation, is going to impact how the commission imposes CAM. And so they really took note of a lot of key issues that we raised, and I feel like this scoping memo was very responsive to our concerns. You know, the questions that the commission is now asking is, you know, is CAM implemented in a way that is transparent and least cost? When should the procurement be deemed CAM eligible? So how do we have regulatory certainty about when these resources are coming online? And how do you account for the costs and benefits allocated to the different parties? So for example, we bring on our own resources online. Is that accounted for in some way? Are the benefits of that resource accounted for in some way or counted against CAM? So this is a very exciting next step, because this has been a very in the weeds and very complex issue, but it's been an important one for our own procurement autonomy and regulatory certainty, and I think that we're making some steps. So does anybody have questions on that component? Yes.
First, I want to say this is the best presentation you've ever done that I've seen.
I agree.
Pictures are appreciated.
Okay, so not only was it so good, but I unfortunately have like a very low-level question. And I just got to get my head around this. You gave us the three things that electricity, green attributes, and capacity.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble understanding the difference between electricity and capacity. I saw the electrons and the power going through the wires that go to the customers, the ratepayers all need in order to turn on their computers and everything else they do. And the capacity's over there in the nuclear power plant looking little thing that you have on the screen that I assume is a natural gas plant.
Yeah, this is a natural.
Okay.
This
But in
one-
any event, I understand there's some capacity that's in that plant.
Yeah.
So that maybe the demand by the customers is hopefully less than the capacity of the plant, by at least 15%,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so I think I understand the difference between capacity and the electricity, but these two smart guys over there on the end over there, they're the ones that are doing our resource. They help us pick the contracts and make sure we have the resources for the power that we anticipate we're gonna need over the next several years.
Yeah.
And they bet the market. You guys are good in Las Vegas too, I bet. And so,
Well, actually, the point of capacity is where you're not betting.
I understand that.
It's
So
a
you-
regulatory requirement to have available more than you need. Is that right, Ben?
Right, so here's the question. So I'm just trying to understand, if we're buying our own power in our various power contracts that we've done, how does PG&E fit in this and do the CAM where we have to be subject to what PG&E's CAM allocation that we don't like, that you're challenging at the PUC?
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is actually a better question than you think it is, and a more complex question than you think it is. So getting back to the requirements that we have for our procurement, we have resource adequacy requirements imposed on us by the California Public Utilities Commission. But on top of that, or combined with it, you also have CAM treatment. And so the question that we're trying to suss out with the commission is, what makes these CAM facilities special? Something more special than your just plain vanilla RA that you need to have online in order to comply with these requirements. And that's the question. You would think that by setting a resource adequacy requirement, you've eliminated the need to have CAM treatment. But apparently there's something special about these contracts. But it hasn't been defined by the commission. And a little bit it's in their advantage to not define what these are so that they can pick and choose contracts that they like and they want to see come online, and everybody pays for them no matter the cost. Whether they're higher cost or lower cost. And I can get into this a little bit more, but I was kind of hoping to save that for another day, but.
Let's not push our luck here.
Yeah, no, let's not push our luck.
Can I add one other component to that?
Please.
I think you're asking kind of the same question that we ask, which is, why should the CPUC allow PG&E to buy this on our behalf? It's an obvious question. It's a really good question. And I think one other thing to keep in mind is that we're a new animal, and we buy long-term, and we buy capacity. And the CPUC isn't used to having entities like us out there, right? They're used to having DA providers out there. They're a little bit different than we are, but they face some of the same issues. But it's our newness, really, that's bringing this question more to the surface and making the CPUC realize, oh, wait a minute, these guys are already buying their own capacity. Does it really make sense for us to force them to buy some of PG&E's?
Yeah, and so if we're told what makes this facility special in some way, we would rather procure it on our own rather than have PG&E procure those resources for us. So really it gets into this autonomy question. It gets into fairness and cost allocation, because we're just frankly not in control of those costs. And it's not a small amount. There's a settlement regarding combined heat and power facilities, and that's probably going to account for 5% of our resource adequacy. And there's other resources that are being granted CAM as well. So this is what we're really trying to address at the commission and see if we can create some policies that better fit the requirements of legislation and ensure that we can procure what our customers want and need. So, but that's sort of the CAM overview, and you will be hearing about it again. I will try to bring pictures again, though I'm not very good at slides. So are there more questions on CAM?
Well,
No?
go ahead.
Okay. The next thing that I just wanted to touch on, and this was something that came out this week. This has been in my regulatory update before, but no later than March 31st of this year, PG&E was required to file an advice letter. It's just a filing with the Public Utilities Commission stating whether or not it plans to market. And if it plans to market, it has to file a marketing compliance plan. You have this advice letter in front of you. Both San Diego Gas and Electric and Southern California Edison determined that they, at this time, are not planning on being marketing utilities, so they are non-marketing utilities. PG&E, however, filed something slightly different. In their advice letter, it's a little bit convoluted, but essentially they're saying, well, we don't plan to market right now, but we would like to market in the future. So instead of notifying the commission at that time and parties out in the market and CCAs at that future time when they would like to market, we'll just set up that plan now. So that's not how the rules work under the decision. So they didn't exactly comply with the requirements. So it's not really worth getting into too much of a tizzy over this. Basically, first they need to determine whether or not they're going to be a non-marketing or a marketing utility. So we need to sort that out. But we are going to be addressing this. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because this really does have significant impacts on not only our own CCA, but the development of CCAs throughout the state. When the last time we had marketing, perhaps Dawn can talk about those experiences, and those of you on the board and in our communities remember PG&E's marketing pushes. But at the end of last year, there was the Code of Conduct decision that came out by the commission. It was something that we worked a lot on, and it ended up being a disappointing decision. And the rules are, in essence, that PG&E can develop their own marketing plan, submit it to the commission. We can comment on it. But there isn't this stakeholder process developing their marketing plan. So this is, PG&E is sort of setting the rules of the game by which they're going to play for marketing purposes. And so this is something that we're just going to be very vigilant on. We're going to be filing comments on this advice letter. And hopefully we will see revised advice letter that will better reflect the requirements that are imposed on PG&E. But for now, it's more of an informational item. Yeah.
So the letter, as I read it, there, PG&E is saying, well, maybe we will, and maybe we won't.
Right.
And so is do you have rules or means or mechanism to force their hand and into a position that's more committed and less coy?
Yeah, so first, the requirements are that if you're going to be a non-marketing utility, which is what half of the PG&E advice letter says, is you just have to say, we're a non-marketing utility. You can change your mind in the future, but then you have to submit to the commission at a later point in time your marketing plan. And it also serves as an important notification process for the commission, for stakeholders, for CCAs to know, okay, here's the turning point. These utilities are going to become marketing utilities against CCAs. So on the one hand, it's sort of part in this camp, and in part it's in the other camp where it's saying, well, but we do want to market, and here's our marketing plan. It's not a very hefty marketing plan, but it is an attachment. So the defect that I see here is that they didn't clearly commit and create that clear designation that the commission specifically asked for to say, we are a marketing utility or we're not a marketing utility. So that's going to be the first step. And then the next step is to make sure that this marketing plan is, given the fact that PG&E is, pretty darn close to a monopoly, that it's as fair as possible.
It is part of then, from our point of view, what our interest is in this is it's a notice interest so that we're clearly on notice when we have really big opposition that's going to employ a marketing plan that could well be directed and focused on us in a way that's hostile to the interests of CCAs. So that's kind of the Fisher cut bait interest in this. Is that the idea?
And then also we'll be providing, we'll also be providing feedback on their marketing plan, which is not as developed as other affiliate marketing rules and other marketing plans that they've drawn up in the past. So we have those precedents, and we'll be sharing those with the Energy Division and working with the commission to sort of see how close we can get this to fair-ish.
If I could chime in, I think one of the important things that's required as part of the commission's decision here and directive is that if an IOU decides to become a marketing utility, they're required to set up an independent marketing division or an IMD. And that's really important because that can help ensure that there's not this crossover between customer data that PG&E happens to have as a monopoly entity that they can use for competitive purposes, and that there's not crossover in cross-subsidizing. I mean, they could be using PG&E dollars coming from our ratepayers and all other ratepayers to subsidize their marketing efforts. And so one of the things that they are supposed to be demonstrating, if they're a marketing utility, is what this independent marketing division will look like and how it will be established. And the CPUC will the idea is that they can provide some oversight to make sure that there is a separation between PG&E and its independent marketing division so that they don't have a competitive advantage in their marketing.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll be engaged on this, and we'll provide updates. But we've already been talking to folks who are very interested in this issue that are, folks that we file with, or cities and towns, nonprofits, folks who are very interested in CCA and who are concerned about this. So we're already bringing together a consortium of folks. We're going to file jointly. The comments are due on the 22nd. And we'll move forward from there. I think this is just sort of the first step in the process.
With this hedge they're proposing there, this kind of wishy-washy approach, I mean, were they to go forward down the road with an intent to do an independent marketing arm, what would our recourse be at that point? Do they have to do another application, or?
Well, on the way that PG&E hopes to do it under this advice letter, we would not have that sort of knowledge at that point in time when they're deciding to form this marketing division and start marketing on CCAs. But I don't think that's how that's going to hash out with the commission. But once.
So that might be at least a fallback position we can take.
Yeah, in this case, so say an awful marketing plan gets adopted. The first recourse is you could appeal it to the commission and see if they change their mind on whether or not they're going to approve it. Also, they still have to comply with the code of conduct that's applicable to them. And so if they violate other terms of the code of conduct, we have expedited complaint procedures and things like that. But if the techniques sanctioned by the commission, if the marketing techniques are sanctioned by the commission, and the commission deems them to be fair practices, that's a challenge. But this is just the beginning of the process. This isn't a definitive marketing plan or the end.
Yes, Director Pye.
So when this, I guess I got this email like everybody else did from Darlene with a letter memo from Beth, and it says, the last paragraph says, due to the significant defects of this advice letter, it does not raise significant concerns for MEA at this time. And a reporter called me, and I read that to him, and I said, yeah, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And then I read the article in the paper, and it says, MCE Executive Director Dawn Wise said Wednesday she is extremely concerned and disappointed that PG&E filed the letter. So are these two different ways of saying the same thing, or?
Was it 60 Minutes or something?
Well, I think that if a marketing plan goes through, there's reasons for concern, but this advice letter appears to be pretty procedurally and substantively defective, and so I think that PG is going to end up having to go back to the drawing board on this. And so from a regulatory perspective, I don't see the imminent concern, because I think that the commission and the energy division will do the right thing. But if we get to a point where PG&E has real marketing plans that they've pulled together, and there are no caps or limits on the extent that they can market against us, that is problematic. I mean, are they going to spend $15 million? Who knows?
Yeah.
And so what's the concern, not concern? Two sides of the same coin, I think. But Dawn can help with that.
I think also, I think Beth was just wanting to, the way that this sounds could appear very alarming, and we didn't want the board to feel alarmed. We don't see this as a direct threat to the agency today. We think there were flaws in the way they filed this, and that's going to be our response at the CPUC. It's going to take some time to play out. The disappointment that I was expressing in media is that PG&E seems to be making a shift now to, rather than holding out their hand and trying to be a better partner, this is really a departure from that relationship that we've been building over the last year and a half.
Well, and perhaps worse yet, they're trying to have it both.
Yeah, that's.
It's noteworthy that they actually placed some calls before issuing the letter, trying to.
Oh, really?
Just, kind of downplay it.
But did they think we weren't going to notice that they didn't say what they were going to do?
That was literally their message on the phone, too. Look, we're going to say that we're not doing anything, but we may. At some unspecified time down the road.
I mean, it's hard to ask any of us to get into the heads of the people at PG&E who wrote this, but what were they thinking? I mean, I don't know what the,
they're trying to, their interpretation of under their interpretation of the rule, they want to preserve the option. They're not willing to just move on completely like the other utilities. So I think where I would also counsel some caution is they also appear to be interested in having a better relationship as well, but this obviously shows they were not willing to let this completely go. They at least want to preserve the option, which was something we need to be concerned about.
Well, they're letting us know that they still might want a prenup.
I think this also is an indication of the approach they might want to take with other communities that are interested in joining. And that's part of the concern that I was expressing as well, that this could be a threat to other CCA efforts.
But are there any other CCAs and PG&E's jurisdictions?
There are a couple of CCA efforts that are close to launch, I would say, within a year or two. San Francisco and Sonoma County.
But we're the only one who's actually walking.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew we were going to see this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, we're past.
Well, in other words, Ken, they told us they were doing it.
Well, they pre-meeted you.
Yes. Beth, anything further?
No, that's it, and like I said, I don't want to raise any, concerns, we're going to be dealing with this on the regulatory front, but it's for your information, and to the extent, there reaches a point where there is concern, we'll be reaching out to you all and keeping you posted on the progress here.
This is what you emailed us, right? Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Great report. It doesn't look like we have any other questions for you. So, item 14, board member and staff matters. Good of the order. Not seeing any. Director Ripken.
Put it down.
I know.
Put it down. I have one quick one. Our own Don Weiss is going to be speaking before the Marin County Bar Association on April 24. And those meetings are open to the public, and it's an opportunity for whatever you want to call us, Marin Energy Authority or our program. MCE.
Well, it's okay there.
Right. It's a nice group. There's lots of lawyers and some judges that will be there, and so, and I'm hopeful we have some board members sitting at this table that maybe we can work to see if we can help you with your presentation.
The last time I went to a Marin Energy meeting, they said, well, Mr. Wachtel's a board member, why can't you answer that question?
You mean maybe we'll put you on the panel for April 24th. Any event, I encourage everyone here to either attend or to, we'd like to make a nice, have a lot of attendance at the meeting. It's a good opportunity for some outreach within our own Marin community. We're done. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We're adjourned.